The time is 6 minutes past 3. And as I mentioned before we went to the break, we're still sticking with that theme of getting those reactions from South African pro-Palestine organizations, and we're getting their reactions on the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. And joining us right now is Khalid Vawda, the founder of Social Intifada, who's going to be giving us their thoughts and reactions to this very, very unfortunate event. Khalid, jazakallah so much for joining us, and welcome to Salam Media.
Jazakallah khair for having us.
I think first and foremost, what does the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh signify for the Palestinian resistance movement? These were very, very critical times. These are times where, there were negotiations of some sort, but seemingly, the Israeli genocidal machine not interested in any kind of peace talks or ceasefire talks, and making it clear with that, really, really brutal action just after a few days when Netanyahu visited the United States of America, where he seemingly got the green light, for this assassination.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a number of factors here. One thing I think this will not do is affect the resistance to the occupation in any way, and it won't affect the massive resistance that's being put up by the fighters and the Mujahideen in Gaza against the Israeli genocidal forces. So that's going to continue. We've been here before. Ismail Haniyeh is a massive loss to the movement, is a massive loss to the struggle, but he, more than anybody else, would have been seeking martyrdom. We know all the leaders of the resistance know that it's either victory or it's martyrdom in the struggle, which has been going on for decades. He's not the first to have been assassinated. He certainly won't be the last. But what Israel does not realize, what the warmongers and the fanatics that run Israel do not realize, they've been doing this over and over again for the last 80 years. It hasn't changed course. The resistance will continue as long as there is an occupation. And as long as there is injustice, the resistance to this will continue until there is freedom and equality for the people of the land. So without justice, resistance will continue. That's absolutely no doubt about that. Netanyahu, on the other hand, these are signs of desperation from Netanyahu and his regime, which obviously, as you've mentioned, he's just come back from the US. And despite Blinken saying that the US had no knowledge of this, that's very hard for any of us to believe. They're all compulsive and pathological liars within the US administration and within the Israeli administration. They definitely would have given him the green light to go ahead with it, although not coming out publicly about it. Netanyahu himself wants to keep his political career alive because Israel is failing on so many fronts over the last 10 months. So it's a sheer act of desperation. They want to drag a wider conflict here, even though they cannot and will not be able to manage it. So they're pulling the United States and they're pulling some of the other allies into this as well. Public opinion, global public opinion, is at an all-time low for the apartheid state. There's pressure on them from some of their allies as well for the amount of children, women, and men that they've massacred brutally in Gaza. We know official figures that have come out, and these are via the health ministry, are touching on 40,000 now. However, the Lancet report and estimates done by people on the ground and medics on the ground take into account the fact that a lot of these numbers that are given there are purely those that have passed through the hospital system. So they've been recorded as deaths at the various hospitals. Those that have been buried under the rubble, those that have been buried in mass graves, those that have been killed as a result of diseases or illness or without access to medication, those number much, much more. And the Lancet's report, which estimates in excess of 180,000, I think that's more close to the real figure that we're looking at. So this is not going to go away. This is massive pressure. Internally, the Israeli occupation forces, their soldiers are not coping. All we're seeing about them on social media is, brutalizing civilians, killing children, bombing up people's homes, parading in women's lingerie and underwear, riding around on children's bikes, destroying stores, destroying businesses. It's sheer destruction. Whereas the videos coming out from Al-Qassam and Islamic Jihad and the other factions that are fighting are targeted military assassinations and operations against the Israeli occupation forces, which leads me to the next point. Their tanks, many of the Merkava tanks, supposedly the most sophisticated tanks ever created in the history of humanity, are being decommissioned. So once one of these gets blown up by the Mujahideen, it's not like it can go into the repair shop and come out the next day and it's back on the road. Once they're decommissioned, that's it. It's going to take months, if not longer, for these to be back out. Their soldiers are tired of fighting. There's PTSD at a massively high level, which is unprecedented in Israeli military society before. There's suicides on the rise within their soldiers. The economy is in tatters because a lot of these rabid dogs who are fighting as part of the Israeli forces come from ordinary Israeli civilian life. They teachers, they medics, they work in ordinary jobs, and because they are being posted onto the front lines and they're in military service, they cannot see to their regular jobs. So there's a strain on the Israeli economy because the day-to-day running of the country, those jobs are all absent. So Israel now needs to import labor from elsewhere. It's a massive sign of desperation, even despite what we saw from Netanyahu and that circus that was the US Congress last week, where they applauded him more than 58 times. That was an act of desperation. It was done for political show and theater for his audience back home in Israel, because he doesn't have support. The families of the prisoners that are in Gaza, the families are protesting against Benjamin Netanyahu and outside his home, and these are regular protests that are taking place. So it's a big mess that they find themselves in. The longer he prolongs this, the longer his so-called political career continues. Because the second this is the aggression, the genocide, the war in Gaza stops, Netanyahu's career is over.
You mentioned that we've been here before. This has happened numerous times. It's documented, the assassination of Hamas leaders. But you have a new crop of activists, of younger people. A new generation who might be really shell-shocked at this. How should activists worldwide react to this development? Is it one that should further fuel acts of activism across the world, the universities, the colleges, and the streets worldwide, where we have seen mass action and protests against Israeli interests?
One of the last documented videos and speeches by Ismail Haniyeh was calling for a day of action on the 3rd of August, which is coming up this weekend, Global Day of Solidarity with Palestine, and he's regularly called for that in his speeches. The activism continues. Our activism continues, and activism around the world continues until Palestine is free, irrespective of who gets assassinated, whose time is up. As believers, we know everybody has an appointed time, and anybody who's involved in the struggle and on the front lines would want to seek the best of deaths, which is shahada, which is martyrdom for Allah's sake. There's no greater accolade. He's already had more than 60 members of his immediate and extended family been killed by Israel. There's shuhada all over. Gaza is a highway to Jannah in terms of shuhada, young and old alike. So our activism on the outside, whether we're in South Africa, whether you're in Europe, in North America, Australia, in the Middle East, wherever you might be, the activism continues. The activism continues because the objective is to get rid of this apartheid entity and to free the land from the massive injustice that it's undergoing. And that's been, it's just brutal, to the point where now we're seeing all of this on our phones because of the brave souls, the youth who have taken their phones and become literally reporters overnight over the last 10 months at a great personal cost to their mental health, to their physical health. Some of them have seen their family members being killed. The images have been all over social media, the horrific, barbaric images of children, of women, of men, of the elderly being brutalized in the worst possible way. We've seen reports come out over the last few days about the rape incident, which has come out in the Israeli, I won't call it a prison, it's a concentration camp for near Gaza. So 10 soldiers being, if it comes to that point where 9 or 10 soldiers, Israeli occupation force soldiers, are reprimanded by the Israeli military to committing an act of aggression against the prisoner, then you must know that this is next level. Just when you think their barbarity and their savagery cannot get any worse, they sink to new depths. So if you, for viewers who aren't familiar with the story, there's been incidents of rape that has been taking place against the male prisoners, Palestinian prisoners in Israeli dungeons. And the latest one was a prisoner who's been hospitalized because 9 or 10 Israeli occupation force soldiers inserted an electrical stick into his rectum to the point where he couldn't walk and he was hospitalized. So that's not all though. What's even worse is the fact that Israelis stormed the facility, the military facility, ordinary Israelis, settlers, whoever they might be. They've stormed the facility in order to demand that these soldiers be released, and they're clashing with their own police about this. So the depravity in the Israeli society is unprecedented. It's sick, it's disgusting, it's psychopathic, and with the exception of a small minority who speak out against the policies of Israel and the practices of Israel, the entire society, Netanyahu is a symptom of Israeli society and Israeli mindset and the psychological, it's just disgusting what goes on in their minds to be able to carry this out and then still to make jokes about it. It's absolutely disgusting. It's horrific.
We're going to leave it there. Khalid, thank you so much for giving us your time and giving us your reaction. Really appreciate it.
Jazakallah khair.
There you have it there. Khalid Vawda, founder of Social Intifada, giving us his reaction to the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Ali Gomape from Africa for Palestine. They'll also be giving us their reactions and what steps and what plans as a solidarity movement do they have going forward when it comes to reacting to this assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. More on that after this short break.